Welcome, everyone. Gosh, we are in our, I think, last of 3 Real Talks for the year of 2022. And I am proud to have my friend, my buddy, fellow heavyweight 28 classmate, Christopher Sullivan with Sullivan Law Offices on with us tonight. Chris, welcome, sir, to our newest edition of Real Talk.
Thank you, Ashley. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, now you are in a suit and I'm in a sweatshirt, but people need to know that. Wait, hold on. What was your TRLP name?
Silly Sully.
Silly Sully. So
Travis Lee Moore might be responsible for that. I'm not positive.
He's responsible for a lot of things. You know what? I tell you, I mean, I'm Smashly Ashley, but that one's been following me for several years now. But it's awesome to have one of my fellow classmates on here. Like we were saying in the pre-show, man, have we grown up? We're like big kids now. Since we graduated, gosh, that was, I guess going 3.5 years ago. So
wow, it does not seem like it was that long ago. And I definitely didn't. I don't think I wore a suit a single day.
You did not wear a suit. In fact, I think you got in trouble sometimes because you wore vests and jeans, and we weren't allowed to wear jeans. But here you are in a crisp suit.
In a suit. Wow.
In a suit, but with no tie. So we're still
good. Intentional.
It's intentional, of course. Well, you are on here this evening, not only because you are a fantastic affiliate partner of Metrotex and a consummate advocate for the real estate industry, but honestly, you are a triple threat in regards to what we can offer to our realtor members and affiliate members as far as what you guys do at Sullivan Law Offices. So you are not just a law office, you are also a fee title office as well. So you have full service title operations, which is fantastic. And I know a lot of people know you guys for that way, but you also do a robust amount of real estate, business law, and estate planning, which is really huge. And that's kind of the theme of the show tonight is, as the market has corrected, that's the proper C word, not crash, corrected the last few months, we're definitely seeing an uptick in just distress layers, difficulties in transactions, not really taking a proactive approach and making sure that we have clean title, talking about the probate side of things and other things like that. And so you were a no-brainer to come on and kind of help because, like I said, you are that multiple threat that can talk about it from what you guys are seeing on the title side, but then also people that are retaining your services from the law side. So first things first is we are seeing an uptick in terminations on contracts. And for multitude of reasons. I mean, condition is one of them. Buyers have a lot more control in the situation. The cost to acquire the property has changed a little bit. So while prices are much more moderate and so are making those offers, buyers are still being really discerning in how they're approaching the situation. And so, but I think we're seeing it on both sides where just kind of some fear-based approach to these transactions. And so terminations are on an uptick. Is that what you guys are seeing on your side?
Yeah, I have a good bit of friends in the industry that are brokers. And so whenever their agents come to them with a difficult situation in their contract, they tell them to call me. And so I field the majority of what I do on a daily basis is field those phone calls and emails. And recently, over the course of about the past 3 weeks, I get anywhere from 2 to 3 phone calls a week with termination questions. Sometimes it's very early in the process and the buyer is just considering walking away. And then other times it's where the seller says, my buyer has failed to perform under the contract. What are my options? What can I do? And so we walk people through that. And I think it's only going to happen more and more as the market continues to evolve. So this is that distress layer where agents are having to do more work. They're having to deal with their clients' emotions during a termination, and they're having to walk through the pain and suffering themselves of not getting paid on the transaction because it's out of their control.
Yep.
So it's just that's an added layer. You're going to see from the lending side and from the title side, more layoffs, and that's
Yeah.
going to lead to transactions having a distress layer from a service provider standpoint, because the service levels that people have expected over the past few years, those might be affected by that.
Yeah.
Because things run like a well-oiled machine until they don't,
Yeah.
and they don't because people lose good people, and
Yeah.
so that's something that is an extra added level of distress to the transactions that agents are going to have to try to pick up some of the slack on and make sure the transaction is moving through the process, and have really good communication with their lenders and with their title people to make sure that things are moving along and no balls are being dropped.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point because, 6 months, a year ago, it was very different when you were approaching, making an offer and the negotiations of an offer. And so, I've always said this, the title company portion isn't a non-starter when you're sitting there and adding that. Of course, in our listings, we have preferred title company, but that's really something we need to be paying attention to on both sides, to make sure that, and listen, there's not demonizing anybody. We've been here before. I know your family's been in the industry for quite some time. I was licensed in the 2007 market. And so, business models do have to change and you do have to pivot to continue to be agile, and run your operations. But it's really important right now on both sides that we make sure that the affiliated partners and vendors that are a part of that contract are well equipped. Now, when you're getting legal services, though, that's not a part of your title operation, correct?
No, not at all. It's totally removed. That just happens to be the way that most referrals come to me, is through the realtors and lenders that I've built relationships with over the past, 5 years or so from being in title. So, realtors are my number one referral source. So outside of, the title and escrow side of it, I'm passionate about making sure that agents are served well because they all are my number one referral source for every part of my business.
Well, that's what we want to continue to hear, Chris, is that we are the most important, because I think right now, at least I'll speak for myself, it gets scary out there. It's the wild, wild west, and realtors are feeling a little bit vulnerable right now because you do. Hey, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, you have to do a little bit more work right now and really put your professionalism hat on, and that's okay. We just want to make sure that we have good resources to reach out to when there are issues, and issues are going to arise, and we just have to prepare for that. And so, Chris, I think you and your team are a great asset because I think you mentioned too, whether it's something in special provisions, I'm going to put Sherry Fearbacher on blast because she always tells all the agents, do not practice law, do not pass go, do not collect $200, and do not put anything wonky in special provisions, especially redundant things. I think that's what I see a lot as a practitioner, is it's something that's already in the contract is then put in special provisions. But hey, maybe what's something that somebody might consult an attorney on to add to special provisions?
Basically, if it has anything to do with the words if and then, that would be something to consult with an attorney on. So if some sort of inspection fails, then the seller will provide an X amount of credit in the transaction. Let's see what else. I just drafted one recently the other day, and now I'm struggling to remember what it was. It was last week.
That's okay. You know what? I knew it was happening. I was sitting here and saying, oh my gosh, these two good looking individuals, and we don't have anybody commenting in the chat yet. And this happens from time to time with technology, but I pulled up my phone and we do have comments in the chat. It's just not showing up for us to read. Of course, Robert Miller, I have met Robert before. He said, yeah. Christopher, you stud. So you've got some fans on here. And of course I called out Sherry and she said no with like 14 no's. So, as far as that's concerned, but no, I think that's still a good thing to be able to, and let me ask you this. Obviously I'm not giving away free services for you by any means, but you're an approachable guy. You're one that builds relationships because you always know that building those relationships, the byproduct is that you're going to be rewarded by doing that. And so if somebody just has a simple question, is that something that you're going to bill them $250 an hour just to answer an email?
Well, my hourly rate is much higher than $250 per hour, but no, it is
I
not
said to
something.
answer an email. If it takes you an hour to answer an email, we've got a problem.
No. The hourly rate is higher than
There you
$250
go.
per hour, but no, I do not charge for phone calls or email questions. The only time we actually charge is in the event that we need to be retained. And
Okay.
so the situation has to be specific, like a commercial lease review, a commercial
Yep.
purchase contract review, drafting a provision for special provisions. I do have to charge for that. I have to be
Sure.
retained by the buyer. Well, you'd be surprised how many agents want you to just write something, at no cost. You have to be retained by the buyer or the seller. That way, one, the agent is protected, but then two, you as the attorney are protected. We don't charge a lot of money for that, but it's something that you have to follow those proper channels. But no, literally what I spend probably 3 to 4 hours a day doing is consulting with people.
Which is great, Chris. And we just dropped your information in the chat, even though you can't see it right now on this live stream. It is popping in there. And I am paying attention. I am just trying to pull it up on my iPad so I can see those as they come in. But no, I mean, I think that's great, Chris. And it's the same thing on the realtor side. We don't have to sit there and of course they're not going to come in. It's not always about trying to nickel and dime everything, but we still have to have a value proposition associated with being in a professional relationship. And that's how we coach our agents to do the same. So I wouldn't expect you to enter into actual legal work and not be compensated. But I think sometimes it's just a question and you might be able to go, Ash, you don't need me. Like, you already know the answer.
I've done that before.
You're fine. Yes. I think you've done it with me too.
Yes,
so
I
it's
have.
like, yes, you're fine. You don't need me. Go. You're already on. You're on the right page.
I don't. It's very pointless for me to bill for 15 minutes. The answering the questions and whatnot, that leads to contract reviews. It leads to dispute resolution, which we do a good bit of. It leads to estate planning. That's something that I would encourage all of my friends and agents to make sure that they have done for their families is that they get a proper estate plan put in place. So we can always talk more about that, but that's something I'm passionate about because I had a close friend of mine in the industry pass away a few years ago, and he left a young daughter and didn't have an estate plan in place. And so they had some issues that they had to work through there. So very passionate about that. Make sure that you, even if it's not us, make sure that you talk to an attorney and get that done for your family.
So it's like Sherry was in lockstep with you because before you even said that, she said, can you please share a bit more on your estate planning services? Yeah. So how you guys approach that?
So it all starts with an individual consultation. We sit down. It is a paid consultation. We typically sit down and we charge $500 for an hour. And then we go through literally everything that could need to be part of this person's estate plan. It is not the cheapest that you will find by any means. It might be on the high end of what you would find, but I believe that we provide enough value to sit down and talk with people and go through those to make sure it's a plan that fits their needs. So that's the consultation side. It all starts with that. We actually sit down face to face, or if teams call if they don't want to sit down face to face, and we go over their all of their assets. We go over their family unit. We talk about their family unit. We talk about their plans for the future and make sure that we are able to create a plan that fits their needs. And there's some really high net worth clients that we might not want to work with, that we might refer that out to because they want a really high end asset protection trust. That would be outside of our scope. Okay. But for the most part, estate planning, everyone needs at a minimum a will. And then if you own a piece of real property in the state of Texas, in my opinion, it's your homestead, you need a will and a transfer on death deed at a minimum. The moment you start having any sort of other interests, like LLC interests, you probably, if you're a small business owner, you should consider having a revocable trust created. And so there's so much more that we can talk about with that.
Sure.
But to keep it short and simple, it is not that expensive. What is much more expensive is if you are someone that has a small business, even if it is you have a few rental properties owned by LLCs. And I know that speaks to a lot of my my people here with being an agent,
Yep.
those LLC interests have to be probated. If you
Yep.
do not have them titled in the name of the trust, the trustee, in the name of the trust, then you're going to have issues. And
Yeah.
it's not you that's going to have issues; it's your family that's going to have issues. So I'd highly recommend you to speak to someone that this is what they do. One of the people involved in my firm, she handles about 30 estate planning sessions per month. And so she is highly skilled when it comes to that. And then my brother is an attorney now as well. His name is Kyle Sullivan, and that is 100% what his practice is focusing on. I personally prefer real estate law and business law. That's what I spend the majority of my time doing because I really enjoy business. But Kyle's found a bit of a niche there in dealing with estate planning.
No, I think it's great. And yes, I mean, whether it's us as realtors, business owners, practitioners, all of those other things, getting our affairs in order. I mean, that's just get your house in order, people. I mean, $500 for an initial consultation for an hour to protect a lifetime of what you've worked for is kind of a drop in the bucket. And I can attest that, Chris, you and your team are always looking. If you don't know the answer, you're the first person to say, you know what, I don't know the exact answer, but I'm going to find that out for you. And those are the people you need to align yourself with. If somebody knows everything, they're lying. That's just that's my personal opinion. Smart people know other smart people, which is why we have you on today. But the probate side of things is also a distress layer on the transaction side that we're constantly seeing. So what are some of the pitfalls with not having a proper estate planning or probate situation that we can see going on?
Well, so one of the main issues is that probate can delay a transaction for a very long period of time, and it's totally avoidable. So that's first and foremost. Sometimes some transactions, the underwriter will allow what's called an affidavit of heirship to be utilized in order to determine who the heirs are at law when you die intestate, which means you die without a will. Lots of times that can be used, but there's still certain situations where it really can't be used, or certain situations where it can be used, but one of the people that inherited is in prison, or that person is in a foreign country, and you have to try to access those people. Sometimes they're in prison in a foreign country. That would come up.
What a double whammy. And then there are some times where they just don't want to participate because crazy cousin Becky, and I'm sorry if your name's Becky out there, but crazy cousin Becky decides that there's another angle here and I'm not going to sign this newfangled agreement. And they're just going to be difficult because it's something that they're just not comfortable with. And I've had that personally happen before, where it's an issue where they feel like they're being swindled and don't want to sign any type of documentation attesting to that the proper heir is the one that's trying to actually sell it.
Yeah. So basically taking the time to put this in place, make sure that your family, one, they don't have to deal with it after you're gone when they're grieving because it's already handled for them. Two, they don't spend more money probating a will or going through probate without a will. Affidavits of heirship, for the most part, aren't that expensive, but they can't always be utilized. But an affidavit of heirship only deals with your real property. It doesn't deal with your LLC interest. And something important to keep in mind, I don't know an underwriter that will allow a real estate transaction to close while there's an open probate using an affidavit of heirship. There might be one out there, but this came up for us probably 2 months ago. And I reached out to one of my buddies, and he was like, Chris, I don't know a single person that'll close this. And not only that, if they think there's a possibility that the probate will be opened back up after the fact, they're not likely to close it. They're likely to make the people finish going through probate. And so that is more time consuming when there is no will. And not only that, if there's minor children involved, then and there's not a guardian for them, there can be issues with having to have a guardian ad litem appointed. So that can greatly delay things as well.
So, the big thing there is, what can we do if from the realtor side, from the practitioner side, we know somebody has passed, relative, has called, we asked, certain probative questions, but what can we do to make sure? Because again, people in an aggrieved situation, they don't know. And you start asking them a ton of questions, they're going to answer to the best of their ability and they don't know. So what can we do to proactively get a good, transparent picture of what's going on?
Well, I think it depends on where the referral source is coming from, or where the people are coming to you from. If it's from a referral, it's going to be easier probably to get that information than if it's from a call to a sign. So knowing what questions to ask up front, questions that each one of the brokers and you would tell your people to ask. Questions like, well, even before you ask the questions, you look at the CAD records, and then you look at the real property records to see who's in title and see who's paying the taxes on the tax records. And then you'll know who you're talking to. It's like, okay, well, this person's name is not the same person's name. You ask them, hey, who are you? Are you residing on the property? Do you have a spouse? You probably know in advance, for the most part, if they do, by looking at the real property records. So there's those types of questions that you can ask from the very beginning, because when you go in there and you have that listing appointment, it's very important for you to set proper expectations. Because if you don't know whether or not there was a will, or you don't know whether or not the property, whether there was a transfer on death deed that was recorded, or you don't know that there was no will, you take that listing, you are setting yourself and your client up for failure by not asking those questions.
Absolutely.
And you're going to really tick off a buyer's agent and a buyer once they get under contract, and then halfway through that contract period, they realize they can't buy this house. Now rates have risen even more, and everyone is frustrated that they can't get a house. So this is a big issue, but the number one thing that y'all can do that is even more important than asking those questions, it is making sure that the people that are in your inner circles, that are your friends and your family members, and even past clients, know that a simple estate plan can make sure that their family members don't have these issues, because you encounter them all day in your business. At least once a month, if you're closing business, more than likely you're going to at least hear a story about how one of your other agent friends had a transaction that wasn't able to close for an extended period of time because of this exact issue. And that's money that your family members are having to spend after the fact, and it's delayed funds for them. They might not be able to access those funds for a period of time because of that, when it could be something that they needed.
Well, so, and Chris, and I think you brought up a good point, though. So like myself, I work for, I do referral-based business, and so it usually is going to come from a direct, warm lead or referral source or somebody that's close to me. It is so difficult, though, when somebody has passed. And I think people get very uncomfortable to kind of ask some of those critical questions. And so I want to throw out there kind of how I handle it, and you tell me if I'm on the right page. And so if somebody calls me and says, my father passed away, I actually had this situation with a childhood friend. And I just said, okay, first things first. It's different because I think you're in a different situation because you come from the title side, the real estate law side, and the estate planning side. But if somebody just does family law and is handling some of these things, it doesn't always, trickle down the right way. Things don't get recorded appropriately. And so I think I've had situations where people have said, no, everything was done. We made sure, my father was ill. And so we made sure how to tee all these things up. But then it doesn't translate into the actual real estate transaction. And so I get my title company involved right away. That's the first thing I do is say, hey, this is my situation. I've asked, was there a will, what the situation was there. And then I kind of loop them in, because it's not that I can't have those conversations, but from a title curative side, they know some better questions to ask than I will. And then it removes me from feeling uncomfortable that I'm getting very invasive into their personal records. And then, not that I don't have a problem doing it, because it's part of my job, but when it comes from the title side of closing, they don't feel like I'm infringing on the personal side. It's just, hey, to be able to clear title and get to that closing table, here are the documents we need. And if you can start getting these to me before you guys list, we can make sure that all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted.
So one of the things that we provide to the agents that work with us are just seller information sheets and AOH questionnaires. So basically, they can provide that to the potential seller. And I say potential because sometimes the person you're meeting with is not the seller or not the only seller. Can provide that to the agents can provide that to them, and then we will be the ones to discuss that AOH questionnaire. And the reason why is early on in my career, I made the mistake of allowing an agent to be the one to have those conversations with the potential sellers, and it ended up not a transaction was not able to close because they weren't 100% honest about who the heirs were. They left out an heir because they didn't like it. So I had to learn that the hard way, and it kind of strained the relationship with the agent a little bit because I wasn't harsh enough and said, no, we need to be the ones to do this. So now I just tell people what I think. Like, no, you shouldn't be the one to do this. You need to listen to me.
Well, and I think it's when you sell it, when you pitch it to the seller from the standpoint of here's my standard operating procedure. We're going to open title with my preferred title company. And just to make sure, we want it, like you said, we want to make sure how it currently reads. Yes, you said you've recorded X, Y, and Z. We're going to loop them in before we even go live or do anything else, because we want to make sure if there's anything else we need to do, that we proactively do that before going on the market and potentially going under contract. So we've got another question though from April Temple. She asked, what about going through a divorce? And so that question was a few minutes ago. And so that's obviously a sticky one, going through a divorce versus being divorced. That's something too. I've got a situation where, I've been appointed by the courts through a divorce process and everything's been done, but it's not finalized and we don't have a divorce decree, but it's being done through the court. So what are some layers in divorce proceedings or post-divorce that you guys see on your end?
This one isn't mine specifically, but I do know one of my friends who has a title operation years back. He had a transaction where the agent had to keep going to the court because the spouse that had domicile, the spouse that was still residing in the property would not allow any showings. And then once that was completed, the spouse wouldn't allow inspections. And then once that was completed, the spouse wouldn't allow final walkthrough. And so the spouse ended up being thrown in jail for like an overnight period a couple of times in order to get the transaction.
Yeah, right.
And so that's one area, just trying to deal with all of the emotions that the people have during that is the biggest layer of complexity. Because you're dealing with people. So, but that's an issue. I know another person who, or another situation where there was a title company that closed a transaction off of a power of attorney where there was a divorce that was pending because they didn't ratify the POA. And so that's something that I've heard of a few years back. That leads to big losses. That's not really y'all's issue. It's more the title company's issue for not ratifying the POA. But the complexities that are added in, it's just dealing with people. I really don't have much else to say, I guess, when it comes to divorce in a transaction. It's pretty straightforward. It's just the emotions that you're having.
Well, here's what I will tell you, and just being in it long enough, you go through a few divorces and they've all been handled differently. And again, I go back to family law. Family law attorneys versus what needs to be done after a divorce decree is approved, everything's done. That seems to be something that always pops up because something wasn't recorded appropriately, or the next step from just, disposition of a real estate, especially when one of the real estate wasn't disposed of as a part of the divorce, somebody gets to keep the asset. And that's, I think, where we kind of get into an issue. So I think going back to, again, aligning yourself with a good title company that can open title, provide the divorce decree, kind of poke holes in how things were done there is an important element, because I've seen it from the standpoint of, okay, they didn't take it that final step. And while one spouse was given the property, Well, guess what? They didn't refinance and take the other spouse off of it. And so, everything can be dealt with. And you said it's the emotional complexity of the situation. So having somebody that can step in and say, hey, ex-husband, I get it. You still feel raw from the process that you just went into, but you did sign off on the fact that your ex-wife was going to keep the house. However, the extra steps weren't done. That's when you need somebody like you guys to be able to come in and advocate on behalf of the transaction, the merits on it, but then also be able to diffuse that, because nothing is as simple as, oh, there was a divorce. We rubber stamped it. It's done. That person can handle that.
No, and then one of the other sides where we see it come up even more often is on the doc prep side for lenders. People wanting to purchase a property prior to their divorce being finalized and not understanding why their spouse would still have to sign the deed of trust for them purchasing that property, and then the spouse not wanting to sign the deed of trust and creating issues. So it's important not just for listing agents to know, but for buyers agents to know that Texas does not allow under law to recognize more than one homestead. So at the moment that you are trying to go get a new property, they're not going to allow that transaction to close. And I say they, the lender, without that other spouse signing off on it, because then they might potentially have issues from a foreclosure standpoint.
So what I can tell you people is ask good questions. If there are indicators that there are things going on in distress layers, that doesn't mean you have to get into the nitty gritty of what the actual situation is, but take as much of that context from that listing appointment or a conversation over the phone, and then go back and call Chris, call his team, call someone and just have that conversation. Don't just draw up a listing agreement and get excited that you're going to go and turn around and put a listing on the market. Because like you said, especially we have a correction in our marketplace, not a crash. Let's remember that, people. Let's put that on a t-shirt. Correction, not a crash. That you just have to, we got to make sure that we're proactively tightening everything up, because like you said, especially with the volatility in the lending space and all of these other things, these type of delays have a larger domino effect than they did in the past. Now, April just wanted to put it out there that, let me say that question was not about me. So April is not getting divorced. If she's married to her husband and everything else, you are safe, sir. Now, Jeff Arnell, who is a buddy of both of ours, he said, two of the best right here, AG and CJS. Great job, guys. We appreciate it, Jeff. And thank you for all you do for the real estate industry and being a consummate professional and advocate for individual property owners' rights. That man is one of the best, and we are both proud to be friends and know him. So, yes, and as we just put in the chat, it's a correction, not a crash. I think we're going to coin that. Maybe hey, you're a business law attorney. I'm sure you could help me for coin that phrase.
You don't want to trade. I don't think you want to trademark that. No.
Okay, got it.
No.
Okay, sometimes
I agree with it though.
Yes.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Okay.
That is too expensive.
It's too expensive. Oh, it's too expensive.
Are you going to sell a lot of t-shirts?
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but I'm wearing one right now, and it's my favorite. And it says, "But did you die?" That's what I'm wearing under my sweatshirt right now. I actually posted about. It's funny because this is one of my favorite sayings, and I've been saying it for years. And the whole thing behind it is, hey, no matter what happens, I mean, of course, we're talking about estate planning and everything else at the same time. If we're still here and we're still alive, then dust off your boots, get up, keep going. And so that's kind of the thought behind it. But did you die? No? All right, get up. Let's keep going. And so my daughter, we did a thankful tree, and they're super cute. They're like $3 at Target. They give you these little leaves and you put together this cardboard tree. And I thought it was so cute. And so we had a little slumber party the other night, and I got one for each of them. And I was like, okay, guys, you write stuff that you're thankful for. And you expect mom, dad, the dogs, everything else. The first thing my daughter puts on her leaf to stick on there is that because I'm not dying, and I'm like, or not dying. It was, but I didn't die. It was something of that nature. And I'm like, well, baby, are you scared of dying? And she's like, no, I just think it's something I'm grateful for. I'm still alive. I'm here. Like, she was talking about all those things. And so, having that question, I'm like, well, maybe I'm rubbing off just a little bit.
Quite profound.
It was quite profound that she is here. She is alive on this earth, and she is thankful for that. I'm like, so sometimes, you know what? Listen to your kids, folks, because they don't make things messy or complicated. So, and actually the actual term was for not dying. That's what it was. But anyways, I digress. So let's go to some other things. We've got 25 minutes left, Chris. See, it's not painful. We've done a good job. Yeah.
This is basically what I do for a living, is talk. So I could do this all night.
But we just get to see your fantastic mug at the same time you're doing the talking. So, a couple of things that I want to talk about, because you and I met through going through leadership training, the leadership program through Metrotex. And for those people that maybe are tuning in and don't understand what the association does. So Metrotex Association of Realtors is a local realtor association. You join to be a realtor. And yes, you have to pronounce it that way, realtor.
Realtor.
It is not realtor. There are plenty of people that will sit there and chop your hand off if you sit there and do that. But it is realtor. But to have an additional professional ethics, pledge and standard, just like any other industry. So we have a professional association. And so by joining, you join the local, state, and national. So Metrotex is the second largest local association in the state of Texas and the fifth largest local association in the country. We just surpassed 27,000 members, by the way, which is super exciting. And that's a mixture of realtors and affiliate partners. The majority of our membership is realtor members, though. And what's super amazing about that is meeting people like you, Chris. We went through the TRLP program. So that's the leadership program through our state umbrella. And it was such an amazing program to go through. You don't know what you don't know until you go through it. And it was definitely an introspective one. You and I definitely got close and bonded because you were kind of on this really hot trajectory in a great stage, infantile. I don't want to say infantile stage in a bad way, but starting your business and just being able to connect on that level and seeing where you have come since then. I'm just so immensely proud, not only as a colleague and a fellow member, but as a friend to see you since then. You have had, you're the best thing that's ever happened to you. And I kept on telling you that when you were saying, man, I'm so busy, I don't know when kids are going to happen. And I'm like, dude, it's the best thing in the world and it changes your lives. So was I right?
Yeah, you were right. Colt Sullivan is the best thing ever. Yeah.
It definitely changes your perspective and how you approach your business. And I'm sure the estate planning portion has probably even gotten more intensified looking at him and realizing that you want to make sure that his world is always the best it can be, even if you're not around. And I think that's the hard part, kind of thinking about those things. But going back to the association side, I mean, just making those connections and having these relationships, they're completely invaluable. And I know the last couple of years has been a little bit wonky in this world. But I'm going to do a shameless plug for Metrotex because I'm exceptionally excited. I am the incoming president-elect for 2023 for Metrotex, and I'm honored to do that. And so at the same time, we have our installation for our new board members, right? December 1st. Yep. So we would love everyone on here to be a part of that. Our incoming president, Belinda Epps, she is just basically Miss Mesquite. Anybody that knows anything that's going on there knows the Epps family. And Belinda is an amazing professional to our industry, a friend and a colleague of mine. And I'm so excited to see her get installed as president of our association. It's going to be at the Mesquite Rodeo. So it is going to be super fun. And there are tickets available for that. Hopefully we'll be able to put a link in the chat. And then the other thing that is super exciting for all of us, because we're talking about relationships and being able to have these conversations with people, our new building that we have dreamed about for years is actually our staff is going to be in there as of Monday. We're so incredibly excited. And we have a grand opening party on December 12th. And so that's an opportunity for everyone in our ecosystem, realtors, affiliates, anybody that wants to come. We want you guys to be there because this is going to be a communal place for everybody in the real estate industry to be able to be there. It's member centric. If people haven't seen the renderings, it's going to blow you away. I know some people are going, oh, okay, inflation's at its all-time high. We've got a market correction in the real estate industry. Well, guys, this has been in the works for years and years, and we have been great stewards of our members' monies to be able to turn around and create a facility that gives back member benefits and services. It's absolutely stunning. We've got the link in the comments, but it's member centric. We have member lounges. We have areas, we have cafes that you can sit there. We're going to have, workstations where you can just come. And if you're on the go or anything else, like this is going to be a place that if this is the hub, and we're so excited for everybody to be a part of that. And Chris, hopefully you and some of your team will be able to be there too, because
I have tickets for both.
Okay, good. No, we're super excited. So that's the biggest thing, because going into this marketplace and things changing, we have to align ourselves with more value. You said you guys aren't necessarily the cheapest on the block, but it's worth spending that money on. And we have to remember that right now when things are changing, that we can't devalue what we provide. And so for you and your team, you still have to provide top-notch service and value. And that means you're not going to be the cheapest on the block, but you get what you pay for, right? I mean, that's something that we've seen over the past few years. So that's what this building though is all about, is being able to continually service, our members and create an opportunity for more ideas to happen, more relationships to be had, and everybody is welcome there. So December 1st, Mesquite Rodeo for the installation, December 12th for the grand opening. So
I'm excited for both of those.
Yeah, no, they're going to be fantastic. And the location of the new building. So that's
Irving, Las Colinas area. Is that right?
Yes. So it's Irving. It's right on that border of Las Colinas. Yeah. And so, it's like 635 in MacArthur. It's not right there at that exit, but it's kind of where everybody knows where that is. Yeah. We are right on the service road. So if you have seen this gorgeous, I think it's like a 40,000 square foot building, we made sure it's huge. Wow. But we wanted it to be so inviting. And so you've got all these trees. It was built in a marshland, and it's something that people are going to be proud to don those doors. So we are. See it. Oh, look at Mark.
I'm going to drive by later.
Okay, drive by later. And then, of course, Mark Koretsky, two of my favorite peeps.
Wow.
Oh, Mark.
What a sweet guy.
I forgot that's how I met Mark, was actually with you.
Oh, was it at Topgolf?
It was at a Topgolf event. Wow. Yes, it was a couple years ago. See, this is how things happen.
2019.
No, it was 2020.
No way.
Yes.
No way. You think
it was 20. I don't know. They all meshed together. So.
Oh yeah, it was probably 2020. You're right.
It was. Yeah, it was. It was 2020. Don't. Listen, you're married, you have a child now, you're not supposed to argue. you just say yes.
Apologies.
Yes, it's all good. It's all good. So we've got like 15 minutes left. I know I was kind of touching on those other things because I think, again, really touching on the relationships and the professional side of things is really important, guys. And Metro Text. Mark just said 2019 for sure. I'm going to find when I went there, and I'm going to prove you both wrong, just because that's the type of woman
definitely
I am.
On my calendar, so yes. I can go back and look.
Okay, so there we go. But relationships and that higher level of professionalism is winning out, and that's an exciting thing for all of us. That makes sure that. Yes, we have the marketing. We're out there and we're kissing hands and doing all that. I think it's kissing babies and shaking hands. That was the term. But okay. you still have to. Yes, you still have to be a phenomenal practitioner. And I think that's where everybody who's listening, guys, this is an exciting time, because there are a lot of people that did not hone in on their craft, that did not make relationships, and that did not continue to educate themselves. And so I don't know. I'm kind of excited for the next few months. I know that means it's a little scary, but it's an opportunity for us to get increased market share. And so, Chris, I want to give this opportunity for you the last 3 minutes to kind of talk about where your passions are. We talked about the estate planning, the real estate law, the business law, of course, your title services. You guys have so many different threats in your operation, but what do you love to do? Why do you get up every day and continue to put yourself in this self-deprecating position of being in real estate?
I have long dreamed of the opportunity to work with my family.
Yeah.
I have two brothers that are, one is an attorney already, and the other one is in law school. And then my other brother lives out on our land in Tyler, and he improves it every day. So that's been a dream of mine for years. And so why I keep doing what I do outside of doing it for my wife and my son is to build something, to be able to do something every day with them. But what I enjoy doing with what I do each day is counseling agents. And that comes in so many different forms. Now on a daily basis, there's a lot of phone calls, but just today I was at RJ Williams and Company in Fort Worth, and I got up there and did an Ask the Attorney session for like 30 minutes, I think, or so, where they just asked me questions about anything, estate planning, real estate law, trust, power of attorneys, all types of stuff. I enjoy that. I have no problem going to any brokerage and teaching, so that's something I enjoy because I get the opportunity to help people do better at what they do, and it provides like a larger impact because then they're affecting and impacting each one of their clients. So or their agents if it's a brokerage, right?
Yeah.
So I enjoy that because then it's a way for me to provide value. Outside of that, I like scaling things. I really enjoy business. I'm someone that I enjoy talking about business and ideas so much more than I do actually doing the work. But I do the work. But I do the work. So from a legal standpoint, what I probably enjoy more than anything would be business law, quickly, like closely followed by real estate law. So on the business law side, it's helping people understand operating agreements. It's helping them do joint ventures. It's helping them make sure their assets that they've built up are protected through limited liability companies, making sure that they understand how to operate it. That way, there's no way that they still could be sued and someone could try to pierce the corporate veil, but making sure it's operated in a way that is going to give them the most resemblance of it being a true separate legal entity and not just themselves. I enjoy that a lot. The estate planning side is something I enjoy, obviously, with, a young family myself, and then what happened to one of my close friends, and then having so many siblings as well. And then on the real estate law side, I actually somewhat enjoy reading commercial purchase contracts. I don't enjoy leases as much. I don't
know anybody that enjoys either one, so I appreciate that you at least like contracts.
I like commercial purchase contracts, typically because when I'm negotiating, I'll put in there Alamo Title Company, 2011 Lakeside Parkway. That's the most exciting part of it, seeing how many of those I can get when I'm negotiating for the buyer or seller.
Yes.
So, anyway, I enjoy that, but probably more so than anything, it's helping the brokers that I've become friends with over the years improve their businesses, because so many agents get to the point of being a broker without actually understanding what it takes to run a business, not just what it takes to be really good at their craft, and putting the tools in place in order to be successful as a business owner is something I think that I can probably provide more value to them than most other people in the marketplace, because I spend so much time doing it in my own business. So I'm always happy to sit down and do that, educate their agents for them. Just being a person of value is probably why I would say I enjoy it, why I keep doing what I do. Is because I found a niche that I can operate within, where I get to be someone that people can rely on. And, it allows me the ability to enjoy what I do.
Well, I can tell you again, for those who weren't on when we first started, but Silly Sully is his leadership name. And so he is not just a red beard and a nice suit. He is actually the guy that usually never wore a suit,
No.
and was having a good time and always there to try to be a friend, make people laugh, and to do all of that. And so I know, Chris, it's a cliche sometimes when people say, "Oh, I just want to provide value and create relationships," but ultimately, at the end of the day, that's truly what we do. And I think like attracts like. And that's where it's awesome that so many of us are still so close out of our leadership class, and we get to see all the successes and applaud each and every one of our friends' journeys on the way. And so, look, that's a part about aligning yourself with professionals, continuing to educate yourself. Iron sharpens iron. I don't want to, be sitting there and just throwing all those cliches out, but those are the things that's kept me afloat over all of these changes that we've seen over the past few years. I mean, we've had the most explosive market that we've ever seen, and then probably the quickest correction in a marketplace that we've ever seen. And so now 2023 is the year of relationships and business building and smart business practices, and aligning yourself with people like Chris and his firm that can not only help you on the title side, plug that Alamo. Alamo, what's it? Is it just Alamo Title?
Yeah, so it's Alamo Title. We're a fee attorney with Alamo. So what that means is it's Sullivan Law Offices, a fee attorney for Alamo Title Company. And
Got it.
there's so many fee attorneys out there that don't actually make it an effort to operate like a title company. I'm not one of those fee attorneys. Our thing is service. And so any title company that you work with in this market is going to be stressed. Just keep that in mind. For the people that you're working with now, this is my plea for them, to you, for them. Don't be short with your people because they are experiencing a lot of stress right now, and it's not necessarily their fault. So you don't have a bad title person or a bad lender. You have people that are trying their best to deal with a changing market and still provide the service that people have, come to expect over the course of the past few years. So just remember that there's people on the other side of it because they're doing the best that they can.
Well, and you know what? That's I think a good thing to end on. We've got a few minutes left. I think talking about, I think Mark just hearted and liked 72 times on that one. So good job, Chris. I think we're all feeling it. And the flip side of that is that's, I think, how realtors have felt, over the past 18 months to 24 months. It's, we were doing the best we could, with the amount of volume and everything else. And I think we have to put ourselves in each other's shoes. I've had this conversation with you. My concern is, hey, I'm still expected to go out there and get business, and provide the business to my partners. And if I don't have that service on the other side, well, gosh, I'm bootstrapping it right now too. And I think it's just, we have to have really good conversations with our partners and just say, hey, I get it. Times are tough right now. I just want to have an understanding of if maybe there is a difference in the standard operating procedure. It's not bad, but you've grown, like you said, you've grown accustomed to one thing, but hey, unfortunately we can no longer do that one thing, but we're still taking care of you guys. So on this, this next deal, here's what to expect. And I think we can all just communicate better, and create realistic expectations of what we can expect in communication, in service. It doesn't mean a downgrade in either one. It just means maybe it changes a little bit. It's still high functioning, but I think we're all just trying to figure out what the shift in the marketplace is doing to everybody. But Chris, I mean, you and I talked about this. It's nothing that you guys are going to stop providing the level of service that you've always done. It just might look different, or you might approach it differently.
You have no choice but to, in this market, as I saw a report today. I get a email every day called NBA News Link, and didn't have a chance to read the entire report. But the headline was something that I already knew. It was Q3 earnings down for title companies, and that is general probably across the U.S. It is not shocking that I saw that headline. I was like, oh, really? No crap. Okay.
I'm feeling that as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for telling me what I already do. But it's just one of those things where in this market, people have to be willing to pivot and adapt. And if you're not willing to pivot and adapt, then you're likely not going to stay in business. Because in my opinion, this is a strong correction. This is a strong correction that we have not seen all of the effects of yet, that we probably won't see until March or April of next year.
Yeah.
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think for the person that treats their business like a business, they're going to be happier on the other side of this. Yes. But it's just you're going to have to deal with a little bit of pain through that time in the terms of less transactions. It's not the worst thing in the world. Anytime people slow down, it's a great time to spend time with your families. So, take it when it's there and then enjoy it when it's not there. So,
well, here's my thing. Spend time with your families. What I did was get my husband licensed. So instead, I just brought my more family into it.
What I told you I'm doing.
Yes, no. So, I mean, this is an opportunity to not only just take that balance perspective and that quality of time perspective, but then to also be strategic so that you can be on the offense. And right now, this is where I would implore everybody to go into planning mode. I know it's scary. Everybody needs to eat. But guys, listen, we still are in one of the most robust markets in the world. We are very blessed to be in North Texas. We can't say that about everywhere else in the country. But if you're listening to the facts and looking at the facts and the economic forecast, and that all of the news outlets, whether you believe them or not, are sitting there and saying that DFW is still poised to be the top real estate market in 2023. Maybe that means end of Q4, beginning of Q1 is slower than we'd like to see it. But for a lot of people's businesses, it did naturally slow down during that period of time. And so take the time to get tactical, make plans, reach out to people like you guys, Chris. I mean, where you can sit there and say, okay, you know what? We've got some time to actually do some really good estate planning, some business planning, operating agreements. If you're pivoting into, diversifying your business model with different revenue streams. I mean, this is the opportunity to get that kind of stuff done, because all we've been doing is putting out fires and being reactionary for the past couple of years.
I will say one of the last things, and I feel so bad in saying this because he's a friend of mine and I don't know how to properly pronounce his last name, but one of my friends is an agent with Real, and his name is Casey McCown or McCoon, however you say his last name.
I did Casey's first deal with him before he was 2 weeks from being licensed. And he bought a duplex from me.
Wow.
Before he was even licensed. So yes, I do know Casey.
He is someone that is unapologetically who he is. And he just had a really, really good post on Facebook last night about his journey. Yeah. And how he's had to pivot in this market and how it looks different than what it was. And, that he failed. But failure is not a bad thing. There is no growth without failure. So, in my opinion, it's more of a failure to not do what he did and to just let things continue on without any sort of changes. So, shout out to Casey. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to say your last name. I feel like a jerk. But you have a hard last name to pronounce, okay? Anyway, go look at his Facebook post because I think it is very encouraging for a lot of people that have been trying to potentially build teams. Because building a team as an agent is one of the hardest things in the world to do. So anyway.
Because it's people. There's people involved. So no, and you know what? No, Casey's great. And I think it's a small world. And this is what it is. Again, it's all about relationships, people. And we put Christopher's contact information in the chat. He really means it. Reach out to him. If you guys have any questions or want to set up a time to talk about estate planning, have a contract question or anything else, he and his team are here for you guys. I've utilized his services across the board. And I will tell you, I'm gonna end it with this. Christopher was instrumental when the lockdowns first occurred in making sure that realtors were deemed essential. And so I want everybody to hear that this man right here fought for our industry and made sure that we could still continue to do what we needed to do, because during that time, there were a lot of families that still needed to buy and sell real estate, because we've all figured out that having a roof over your head is the most important thing in this world beyond having your family. That is the most important utility. So Chris, for the bottom of my heart, as a realtor, that's how I put food on my table, as a tree pack advocate and everything else. Thank you for all your service and helping us through those times, continuing to advocate and making sure we were deemed essential.
I appreciate it. It matters to me because, like I said at the very beginning of this, y'all are my number one source of everything. So I have my entire career to thank to real estate agents and to mortgage lenders. So I'm always here to serve y'all, and it is something that I'm happy to do.
Well, thank you, sir. I want to have you on again in 2023. Let's talk about how the end of Q1 pivoted us into another great year for real estate. And I truly believe that, guys. But like Chris said, it's the time of pivot. Build your relationships. You guys have his contact information. Feel free to reach out to me or Metro Text if you have any other questions. But we're here to serve our members. And we appreciate you guys joining us. And you know what? I'll catch you on the flip side, sir.
It's good to talk with you, Ashley.
We'll see you again. Smashly. All right, silly Sully. We'll talk to you soon.